Many marriages don't struggle because of money, intimacy, or communication. They struggle because someone never truly left home. If your parents still influence your decisions, priorities, or relationship more than they should, it can quietly damage your marriage. In this video, I'll explain what cutting the umbilical cord really means and give you the LIPS framework to build healthy boundaries while still honouring your parents. A man leaves his father and mother and joins himself to his wife, and they become one body. Cutting the umbilical means to grow up, to be separate from your parents, and to operate independently from them. Marriage doesn't end love for parents. It changes priorities. It changes the relationship that you have with your parents. It develops a mutual understanding of the healthy boundaries that you want to have in place so that you can exercise your personal responsibilities independently. And these boundaries protect love. I developed the LIPS framework in order to explain to you why you ought to cut the umbilical cord and how to do it. So let's dig into that framework. L is for leadership. A leader is the head. A leader goes before the rest and paves the way. I believe that a husband carries the unique responsibility to lead with love, sacrifice, and accountability. For the context of this video, I'll be referring to the man as the one needing to cut the umbilical. But whilst I'm speaking about husbands, unhealthy attachments can happen with either spouse, and this framework is still suitable. A husband should not be an authoritarian leader and should co-lead with his spouse. Spouses have a shared mission of leading a family, and the man is the head of this shared mission. He should set an example of that love by listening to the wisdom of his spouse and thus leading with her. A leader has unique responsibilities in a home and is relied upon by everyone. A leader should express humility when they make mistakes or fail, and they should receive forgiveness in these moments. A leader puts the needs of those he is responsible for before his own needs, for the good of the family. He finds a good balance between this and self-care to ensure that he is able to serve the family well and consistently. A leader is someone who takes on what is required out of love for those who he serves, and he doesn't pass off the buck to somebody else. This leader is looked to for answers, direction and clarity, and for support. A leader is also needed for correction and for love. A leader should be able to make a decision, whether that be having discerned together with his spouse or by himself. A leader doesn't call their parents every time a decision needs to be made when they're not sure what to do. He mulls in it, weighs up the costs, and then decides, and commits to his decision after consulting and discerning with his spouse, which ensures communion is being maintained. A leader knows and respects the value his spouse brings to the union of marriage and always wants it to be brought to the table, considering it carefully in all decisions, and therefore maintaining the co-leadership of the marriage union. Taking myself as an example, I am far from a perfect leader, but I always try to make the best and right decision for our family. I don't rely on my wife or parents to decide for us, but I will always consult my wife while respecting her opinion. Of course, there are some things I know my wife won't need to be involved with or won't want to be involved with, for whatever reason, in which case I take responsibility. Both spouses must discern when to and not to include the other spouse, being careful not to disregard each other from something important. I is for independence. This is independence from your parents and not from your spouse. The only independence from your spouse that you can have is the one that you agreed to have together, such as I independently deal with certain financial things or paying bills, and she does other things, and we agreed on that. If there is a contention or disagreement about having or dealing with something independently, then it's best for it not to be dealt with independently, which maintains communion, peace, and unity, which is much more important. Parents sometimes overstep, or they might want to have an input into something, and this might start with a few questions or comments. And whilst we should always honour our parents, this doesn't mean that we should be blindly obedient to our parents, especially when it comes to something that we are responsible for. But it is also true that we are called to be obedient to our parents, only when it doesn't conflict with our marital or other vocational responsibilities. You can and you should express this kind of independence from your parents. This helps them to get used to the fact that you are now independent from them and are joined to your spouse, and maybe you don't need or want their input. By gently saying something like, my wife and I have discussed it and this is how we like it, or that is what we want to do. in a loving manner. This can be used as a respectful way to remind them that you are one with your spouse now, and that you operate in a partnership with them, and not as individuals. It is paramount that the husband is the prime person to address his family when it comes to subjects that could cause tension, and that the wife is the prime person to speak to her family for these kinds of conversations. The couple should agree on this, of course, but this protects relationships with your in-laws and maintains a degree of respect that could potentially be seen as overstepped if it comes from the spouse or partner instead of you. Independence comes when these healthy boundaries are put in place and are respected and reinforced, and it can take time to form them. Taking myself as an example, I can't remember the last time I consulted my mum or dad for something to do with my family. Not out of disregard for them, but because my wife and I have enough life experience, trust and respect between us to make our own decisions. And if we make a mistake, we're able to accept that and to work together to lead our home towards whatever goals we set. My parents are fantastic and they always support and respect our decisions, but if they do have an opinion, they share it in such a loving manner that it doesn't cross any boundaries. Not everyone has parents like this, and in that we are blessed. If you don't have those kind of parents, stay strong but respectful. Never put the opinion of your parents above what you or your spouse have agreed, because to do so is to give up your independence from them and to disregard your spouse's opinion, which a spouse should never do. P is for priorities. When I got married, my priorities changed. There was a new center to my life, my spouse and later my children. If you are relied upon by your parents because of their age or incapacity, then it can be very difficult to change priorities. Or if your father wasn't around and you were the man of the house. These can be a uniquely challenging situation, but ultimately you have made a commitment to your spouse and should make her and your family the priority. This doesn't mean that you can't and you shouldn't support and help your parents. You should always honour them, but they shouldn't take priority over your spousal and family responsibilities. So always remind yourself that they are now number one. Growing up, I was heavily involved in doing DIY, washing the car, mowing the lawn, but now someone else is doing it because I have my own family and my own home to take care of. Of course, if there's nobody there to help my parents, then you should support them as they need or arrange help at least. S is for spousal unity. What on earth is spousal unity? This is the communion and connection between a husband and wife, which is a unique relationship whereby you are on the same page and have respect, trust and understanding of each other. This is a great part of marriage that you can enjoy every day, but this can be strained if you have parents still clinging on to you. And by that, I mean regular messages, calls, questions, just generally hassling you. I don't mean normal updates when someone is sick or if you're organising something. I mean, have a nice day, what are you up to today? Just too much and too often. And balanced communion and contact with parents is good, but priority should be given to the marital bond. If you can't go a few days without something to respond to from your parents, then you might have an issue. This is usually an issue for men with their mothers, but not always. A man shouldn't need to update his mum on his life several times a week just to keep her happy. A man should be left free to live his life in communion with God and with his wife. Still with love for his parents, but with the choice to decide when he speaks to his parents. Being careful not to neglect or ignore them, which would be the opposite of honouring them. But how can you ensure this spousal unity is protected? Make sure that you set the right boundaries and that you are the one to initiate conversation when convenient. This stops parents from potentially feeling ignored, and you can put the right priorities in place while still showing love to them. The spousal unity is also protected and preserved when you both have good relationships with your in-laws. This should be worked on before and during marriages, and it's important to ensure that neither one feels under threat or replaced. My wife and mother have a great relationship and they have respect for one another. This is a blessing because it means our spousal unity is understood and respected, and our family definitely reaps the benefits of that. If you or your spouse feels second place, then something is out of order. Marriage reveals where your priorities are, but responsibility reveals who you are. In the next video, I break down the 3 R's framework which I use to build discipline and become someone who can actually carry responsibility well. See you in the next video. Peace.